Welcome to a deep dive, everyone. We're tackling Animal Farm by George Orwell, and let me tell you, those excerpts you sent in, wow. Get ready for some serious aha moments as we uncover the timeless and sometimes unsettling truths hidden within this deceptively simple story.
It's fascinating, isn't it, how a book written decades ago about a bunch of talking animals on a farm still feels so relevant today. Orwell's insights into power, revolution, and human nature are as sharp as ever.
It's like he had this uncanny ability to see right through the BS, right to the heart of the human condition, no matter the setting.
Exactly. And he doesn't shy away from the tough questions either.
Which is why we're here. So should we just jump right in with Old Major then? I mean, this prize-winning boar really gets the ball rolling with his whole man is the enemy speech, doesn't he?
Absolutely. Old Major lays the foundation for animalism, the system of belief that drives the rebellion. What's striking is how he taps into the animal's deep-seated resentment toward humans.
Yeah, and that song, Beasts of England, talk about a revolutionary anthem. It's catchy, it's inspiring, and it really gets those animals fired up, right?
It's a powerful symbol of unity and hope, of a future free from human oppression. But then, of course, Old Major dies, leaving those animals to figure out how to actually make his dream a reality.
And that's where things start to get really interesting. Enter Snowball and Napoleon, two ambitious pigs who waste no time taking charge.
Yeah.
They're all about animalism, about those 7 commandments. But even from the get-go, you get this sense of, I don't know, an undercurrent of tension, of things not quite adding up.
It's like the moment the visionary leader is gone, the power vacuum becomes impossible to ignore.
Right. And those pigs, with their literacy, they essentially hold the keys to knowledge, which, as we all know, is power.
And they know it. Think about it. Napoleon takes control of the education of those puppies, isolating them, shaping their loyalty. It's a subtle but incredibly calculated move.
It's all very strategic, isn't it? While Napoleon's playing this long game, Snowball's busy organizing, teaching, trying to rally the animals around this idea of a better future. But he's charismatic, and sometimes charisma can be both a blessing and a curse.
Definitely. It can inspire, but it can also make people more susceptible to manipulation, to blind faith.
Okay, so we've got this power dynamic brewing with Napoleon pulling the strings from the shadows and Snowball in the spotlight. And then there's Squealer, the ultimate spin doctor.
Ah, Squealer. He's fascinating to me. He embodies the power of language, of propaganda, to shape perception and control the narrative. It's not just about outright lies. It's about twisting the truth, appealing to emotions.
And he's good at it. Those sheep, with their incessant bleating of 4 legs good, 2 legs bad, they become his unwitting accomplices, silencing any dissenting voices.
It's a chilling example of how easily a group can be manipulated, especially when fueled by fear and simple slogans.
So to recap, we've got a revolution brewing, fueled by Old Major's vision and that catchy Beasts of England tune. But with his death, the stage is set for a power struggle between 2 very different pigs, each with their own agenda. And lurking in the background is Squealer, the master manipulator, ready to spin the narrative in whichever direction serves the pigs best.
And let's not forget that looming symbol of progress, that becomes a point of contention. The windmill.
Ah, yes, the windmill.
Yeah.
Snowball sees it as this technological marvel, right? A way to improve the animals' lives, to bring them closer to that utopian ideal. But Napoleon has other plans.
For Napoleon, the windmill represents control, a means to an end, and he's willing to do whatever it takes to ensure it serves his interests, not necessarily the animals.
And that's where we'll pick up in the next part of our deep dive into Animal Farm. We're about to witness a power grab that will change the very fabric of this farm, and not for the better. Stay tuned. So we left off with Snowball and Napoleon, each vying for control, their clashing visions for Animal Farm embodied in this whole windmill debate. And then, bam, everything changes.
It's a brutal turn of events. Napoleon unleashes those dogs, remember? The ones he's been secretly training, those fierce, loyal enforcers. They boost into the barn, scattering the animals, chasing Snowball off the farm.
Yeah, and the sheer terror. Right, you can practically feel it in that scene. It's a clear message to any animal who might question Napoleon's authority: step out of line, and you'll face the consequences.
Absolutely. It's the end of any pretense of democratic decision-making, of open debate. Fear becomes the primary tool of control.
And just like that, Napoleon seizes power, disbands the committees, declares the windmill will be built, conveniently forgetting to mention it was Snowball's idea in the first place. I mean, talk about a power grab.
Right. It's a classic tactic, unfortunately. Rewrite history, control the narrative, and eliminate any opposition. And with Snowball gone, he becomes this convenient scapegoat.
Oh, absolutely. Suddenly, every problem, every broken fence, every missed quota, it's all Snowball's fault. Those whispers of dissent, those questions about Napoleon's leadership, they're quickly silenced.
And of course, Squealer's there to spin it all, to convince the animals that everything's happening for their own good. The pigs are just looking out for them, working tirelessly, making the tough decisions.
And those poor sheep, they eat it up, bleeding their 4 legs good, 2 legs bad mantra, drowning out any dissenting voices.
Yeah.
It's terrifying how easily they're manipulated.
It's a stark reminder of how easily propaganda can take root, especially when it plays on people's fears and insecurities.
And what about Boxer? He breaks my heart. This hardworking, loyal horse blindly trusting Napoleon, believing with all his might that Napoleon is always right.
Boxer represents that segment of any society that's easily swayed by those in power who place their faith in authority figures without question.
And he pays the ultimate price for it. Worked to the bone, then discarded when he's no longer useful.
It's a tragic reminder that blind faith can have devastating consequences.
Okay, so the pigs are living high on the hog, no pun intended, while the other animals toil away, their lives barely improving, if not getting worse. And those 7 commandments, those unbreakable pillars of animalism, they start to look a little, shall we say, flexible.
No animal shall drink alcohol becomes no animal shall drink alcohol to excess. Just a slight tweak, but it speaks volumes.
Right. It's like those commandments were written in disappearing ink. And that's not even the worst of it. No animal shall kill any other animal. Remember that one?
Oh, yes. The pigs added a couple of little words that changed everything.
Without cause. Just like that, they gave themselves the power of life and death over the entire farm. It's chilling.
It's a textbook example of how totalitarian regimes operate. They erode freedoms gradually, twisting language, manipulating the truth, until the very principles they claim to uphold become unrecognizable.
It's like watching a train wreck in slow motion, isn't it? You see these ideals, these promises of equality, crumble right before your eyes.
And what's tragic is how those who suffer the most, those who put their faith in the pigs' promises, they're the ones left with nothing.
Like Boxer. His death, it's just heartbreaking. All that hard work, all that loyalty, and for what?
It highlights the danger of blind obedience, of surrendering critical thinking to those in power.
And those sheep, with their incessant bleeding, they're almost comical if it weren't so tragic. 4 legs good, 2 legs bad, even as the pigs are walking upright wearing human clothes.
They become a symbol of the unthinking masses, easily swayed by propaganda. Their voices used to drown out any form of dissent.
It's disturbing how relevant that feels today, isn't it? The whole idea of misinformation, of people blindly following what they hear without questioning, without thinking for themselves.
It's a cautionary tale, for sure. Orwell is reminding us that the fight for freedom, for a just society, it doesn't end with a revolution. It requires constant vigilance, a willingness to question, to challenge, to hold those in power accountable.
Because power corrupts. We see that time and time again, not just in Animal Farm, but throughout history.
Exactly. And it's often those who promise the most, those who claim to have all the answers, who are the ones we need to watch out for the most.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Animal Farm, what's the one thing you hope our listeners take away from this story?
Think for yourself, question everything, and never, ever underestimate the power of language to shape perception and control the narrative.
Wise words. Well, folks, there you have it. A chilling tale of revolution betrayed, of power corrupting, and the dangers of blind obedience. But also a timeless reminder of the importance of critical thinking, of fighting for what's right, and of never, ever giving up on the pursuit of a more just and equitable world. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.